Okay, we're live. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Career Speaker Series. My name is Mr. Canone, and today I have the pleasure of welcoming a YCDSB alumni, a pastry chef, and artist, Nadia Colella. Welcome, Nadia. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Rob. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So Nadia is, of course, a YCDSB alumna. So Nadia, why don't you tell us a bit about your YCDSB journey?
Yeah, so I went to Our Lady of Peace Catholic elementary school, and then I went on to St. Joan of Arc. And throughout my time at St. Joan of Arc, I spent a lot of time taking art and design classes because I think I eventually knew that I was going to kind of carry on through this journey.
Absolutely, makes sense. So Nadia, as you know, there are so many schools joining us today from across the York Catholic District School Board, including some of your former teachers, which is so sweet because, yeah, I heard through friends that, oh my goodness, I taught her sibling. So it's so nice that we're all able to gather here in community and have former teachers be able to see your successes to date.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so happy that everybody could join.
Yes, and students also came up with questions in advance, and that's how we're going to be conducting this conversation. So we're going to get started with that right now.
Okay.
And this question comes to us from Rosangela at St. Gabriel the Archangel. What pathways did you take after high school to achieve your goal? Your work is extremely beautiful, a God-given talent.
Oh, thank you, Rosangela. So after my time at SJA, I went on to study at OCAD here in Toronto. So it's the Ontario College of Art and Design. And it had already become a university by time I had applied, which was great because that was kind of always the pathway I kind of wanted to direct down. Like I had taken all academic classes, and OCAD was kind of a great experience because it really got me outside of my shell. I think I was really timid in high school, and I found that that time there really helped kind of develop not only my artistic skills, but also confidence, and that what I would need for this industry. And then right after I graduated university, I went on to the French pastry school. So I studied in Chicago, and I took a full pastry program, which was an intensive course. So it was only 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crammed into a lot. I'm sure you learned a lot in that time.
Yeah, it was all in 2011. Like I graduated May of 2011 from OCAD and then signed up in basically for the July start in Chicago.
That's amazing. And here's another question coming to us from Christian. What made you want to become a pastry chef and artist?
Thanks, Christian. So I think, so I definitely, when I started dabbling in pastry in high school, I was 15, so I would have been in grade 10. And I had taken a class with a pastry artist in Toronto. And at that time, she was pretty influential, kind of making some of Toronto's biggest wedding cakes. And after I had taken that class, I think she saw that I was really eager and allowed me to stay on as an intern that summer. And then it was after that summer that I think I realized that cake was really a medium that I wanted to express my art through. But I was still, taking a lot of art classes at SJA, and I had, a great art teacher, Mary DeRose, who helped really shape, that drive that I had for art too. So I would say it was kind of an influence of both. And then knowing that I wanted to go to university first to kind of get that degree under my belt, I had to kind of build a portfolio, and she really helped me with that process. But then right after university, I knew I still wanted to kind of develop the skills to being a pastry artist because cake was really all I knew up until I was, that age. And then I wanted to kind of expand those skills.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And sort of similar to what you've already answered, when did you become interested in pursuing a career related to art and baking? Do you have any tips for students interested in learning more about art?
Okay.
And Rianka,
thank you. So yeah, like I mentioned, I guess I was pretty young. I was 15, and so I would have been grade 10 going into grade 11. And I think that was pretty young, and not everybody's going to know at that age kind of what career path they want. So I would say don't put a lot of stress on yourself. Kind of dive into what you think you're most interested in, and then that path might change along the way. And that's okay, because it's only going to make you more influential and keep building skills. There's no education is wasted education, in my opinion. And then I would say any tips for learning more about art. like if you're already taking art in high school, but you want to kind of expand, I know there's a lot of other smaller schools that are private that you can take extra classes at. I know like the AGO runs programs usually that are like night classes or weekends. Those could be kind of cool. And if you're really into wanting to see more art and even talking to, a room full of artists, I would recommend going to like grad exhibition shows. And because, they're open to the public, like OCAD does one every year for all the grads. We displayed our work after fourth year. And there was a lot of like younger students I remember walking around who were looking to see if that was a path that they wanted to take.
That's awesome. Very sound advice, because I like how you said that no education is wasted. Specifically, you focused on one discipline in university, OCAD, and then you built on that. And that sort of helped you marry those two skills and talents, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Awesome. Our next question comes to us from Abigail and Jacob. How long did it take you to make the cake for Drake's mother, and how did that all come about?
Okay, thanks, Abigail and Jacob. It's so funny because I think that when people see that you've done things for celebrities, like I've done a lot of hockey players and, basketball players and things like that, it's always seems like so starstruck, but a lot of times you don't even really get to meet these people, right? A lot of times they have PR or assistants that reach out to you. So a few of the basketball players that I've worked with, I've actually had the opportunity to meet, which is really nice, and hockey players. But with Drake, it wasn't a case. Like, he didn't call me up and was like, I need a cake from my mom now.
Darn.
It wasn't like that. So he had somebody that was on his like OVO team that had been following me on Instagram, really liked my work, and it was really last minute. It was like 2 days before the birthday. And they were like, can you make a cake for Drake's mom? And I was, I wasn't going to turn down the opportunity. So we took that on, and I told them what I was able to accomplish in a few days. And I would say that was a painted cake. So it probably took roughly about 15 hours to kind of complete something like that.
Wow. And what's that cake behind you? That's is that a painted cake? I'm not sure with my terms.
No. So this one's a bit more textured. This was from a style shoot. So I do a lot of features for magazines, and usually bridal magazines, because that's kind of the niche market that I focus on. And this one's kind of textured quite a bit and built up a little bit more sculpturally. And there's a lot of sugar flowers. So all of those flowers would have been made by hand.
So how long would something like that take you? Is it similar to baking a real cake, the design and art process?
So the process is a bit different because there's no baking involved. We start with styrofoam dummies, we call them, and then they get covered in fondant and decorated the same way a fresh cake would. So this one took about, I think, like 2 full work days. So maybe about, close to 20 hours to create without any baking involved. So if it was a real wedding, it would take, closer to maybe even 40.
Got it. Certainly a piece of art.
Yeah.
So this is sort of what you've answered in these questions. Where did you learn most of your skills?
Okay.
And to that end, do you continue to learn? How do you continue to evolve in your position?
Definitely. So yeah, a lot of my skills were definitely built in the fine art world. Definitely, like, I learned a lot about color theory, painting skills, things like that through my time at OCAD. And I want to mention, it was definitely self-directed. It's not something where for students that, might be interested in art degrees, there's no teacher or instructor standing up and painting a canvas and then saying replicate it. Everybody's work is meant to be their own. So that was really amazing about that time there too. It was really self-exploration and discovery. So you're not in competition with anybody, which I think was the best part about it. And then definitely, so your skills kind of build without you even noticing in some way, which I think is really kind of remarkable. And then when I went on to pastry school, that was very much more directed. Like the chef is standing at the front of the class, does a demonstration, and then everybody kind of replicates, and then they kind of critique you on how you can kind of do better. So I'd say that's kind of like where a lot of those skills were built. But I'm, like you mentioned, like, I'm still learning today. There's days that we hit like bumps in a road where you're like, how have I not even experienced this yet in all the time that I've been doing this? But that's what's kind of amazing about it. There's always going to be highs and lows. And I think the highs are what help you get through the lows.
Yeah, absolutely. And similar. Talk to us about and provide us with your advice with 3 skills or habits that you think young students who are interested in a career in the culinary arts should work on building and strengthening today.
Okay, so I would say the number one skill, and it's something that I kind of recognized a lot in university, but then was really reiterated once I went to pastry school, was discipline. So I find the craft really doesn't come without the work and the effort. We can get bogged down on ourselves by saying, why aren't I that good? Or why can't I be better? But it really takes time and like that hard work to kind of put towards. And no one's going to be perfect in the end. And that's kind of the best part about being an artist, because you're always evolving and learning new things. But you definitely have to have that discipline, or else it's not going to come. And then I would say problem solving is a great skill to have. And it definitely wasn't something that I was strong in my early years. Like, I remember always on my report cards, problem solving was one of those things that I could always improve. So I think that came with time and experience. And definitely now that I have a team, I think it's great because we problem solve together and we kind of bounce ideas off of each other. So sometimes it's not always just you who's going to kind of come up with every, genius idea or, solve to the problem. And then I made a few notes on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd say design. So definitely a skill, if you're going to be kind of going down that path of art, would be things like color theory. It becomes like those skills become something that you think when you're learning them, you're like, oh, I'm not going to use this. But then along the way, it becomes like a way of seeing. And it's something I almost sometimes can't even teach in some way. Like, it's just something you learn, and you can look at something, squint your eyes and know what it needs. So, but that's a skill that will eventually kind of develop. But if you kind of learn the basic principles and techniques that are kind of been taught throughout the history of design and art, that's going to just be something that's going to transform the way you look at things.
Absolutely. I love that you touched upon all those 3 things. So valuable. And these are skills and competencies that we try to foster in our students. And we always emphasize, there's no I in team, and everyone together. Imagine imagine what you can create together, right?
You always say, the hard, the dream kind of comes from the team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's a great question from Katya at St. Anthony. Do you sometimes get stuck or run out of inspiration when creating your pieces of art? And how do you keep going during those times?
Definitely. Okay, so I think that as an artist, you're always going to kind of hit like roadblocks, right? And sometimes you do get stuck. And a lot of my work specifically is commission based. So a client comes to me and is looking for, a creation. And sometimes what they're looking for doesn't really resonate with you. And sometimes in those scenarios, I am really honest if I don't think that we're a right fit. But I always really do try to find that loophole of where I can kind of meet them halfway. And sometimes that does kind of get you stuck or makes you run out of ideas. But I find a helpful tip for me is on my desktop, I always keep a folder with the year it is. So right now my folder says 2020 inspiration. And anytime I find something that I think is really inspirational or could be a really great cake idea, or maybe even a painting idea, I'll drop that idea in the folder. And then when I'm presented an idea that I may be stuck on, I kind of flip through that folder and see if something can trigger an idea. So I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We see so much all the time, and
it's overwhelming.
Yeah. To house it in something, in a folder that can inspire us. And then I'm sure with your clients, you can also share it with them.
Yeah, definitely.
With them. I love that. Great advice.
People are really visual too, right? So they may say, okay, you have this great idea, but I don't know what that looks like. And they'll say, oh, well, you make me like a mock-up, and it's not like that, right?
Right.
So I know, I do sketches and things like that, and I try to provide as much inspiration photo. But in the end, like the client really does have to trust you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's another question coming to us from Isabella at St. Elizabeth, Seton. What is the best thing you have ever baked? What are you most proud of to date?
Okay. Thanks, Isabella. That's a really good question. So I think Okay, the best thing I ever baked, I think definitely when I was in pastry school, I had went in kind of with an understanding of cake as really, the pastry world that I had played in. So I hadn't really dabbled too much in all like the fine French pastries, and that was something I really wanted to learn. So I find sometimes I could make, and I mean, they're not simple things. I mean, at the end of the day, they are complex, but it could be just a simple pastry, right? Like a choux base, which is kind of like a cream puff or an eclair, or something that maybe has puff pastry layered in it. And they're so kind of precise and kind of a science behind really making them. And when something like that turns out really perfect, I find there's like this kind of like proud feeling.
Absolutely. So another good question coming to us from Darius at St. Anthony. How is this pandemic affecting your business?
Okay, so thanks, Darius. During this time, I find like most industries, especially hospitality and the food world, is directly affected because a lot of our events can't go on. So I've had many, showers, weddings, bat mitzvahs, like in all those types of events that have been either postponed, some even being canceled. And right now we're kind of looking at events that were supposed to be in spring, summer of 2020 that are being pushed to late fall into 2021. But the late fall is not promising at this point either, because a lot of the clients that I work with have events of, over 200 guests, and they may not be able to gather this year as of what we know so far.
Wow. I imagine that when things are up and running, you're going to be very overwhelmed.
Yeah, but you know what? I find that I was going to say, like, that whole self-discovery thing and kind of always learning. I stepped into 2020 kind of wanting to expand my brand in a different way, but not knowing how or what time would really allow for it. Because usually once April, May hits, we hit the ground running, and I don't stop basically until November.
Mm-hmm.
And days are like, 12 to 18 hours long.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But when everything kind of slowed down, I really stopped and evaluated this time that I've been given. And I'm really exploring like, more time on social media and networking with my viewers, and also kind of dabbling back into the art world, right? And I'm painting again, which is great, and trying to see how that maybe can expand my brand differently. Which, I mean, I still love like the cake and the pastry element, and that's never really going to go away. But if it can be something that kind of gradually grows in a different direction, this has kind of been a great time for me to explore that.
Absolutely. You've had time to pause, and I know how busy you are, and that's rare, very rare for you.
Totally. Yeah. If I'm like not taking an order, it's because I'm on vacation. So it's not that I'm ever like on a staycation.
Of course, of course. This comes to us from Diego at St. Elizabeth. What do you love most about your job?
Thanks, Diego. I would say the best part, I mean, it's really nice being self-employed. There's days where it's hard because you're kind of the everything, right? Like you deal with the emails, the clients, producing the product, delivering the product. So it's definitely a hard job in that sense, but I feel like it's super rewarding. And a lot of times because the work is commission-based, making somebody really happy with your work is super rewarding.
Awesome. Here's another great question. How has your faith helped you in your job?
Thanks, Julia. So I would say definitely in keeping me humble and modest. I think it's really easy to kind of lose sight of who you are and maybe the values that you were taught from a young age. And, social media is such a facade in a lot of ways. And I want to really stress that because we can, put on a pretty face and everybody can look really great and happy and life seems, fabulous, but everybody has their challenges and their struggles. So I think kind of staying true to who you are and doing your best with that is going to keep you on track. And I think, I grew up with really religious parents, and having gone through the Catholic system, that faith kind of always has stuck with me, even if I don't practice my faith in every single day.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And our very last question of the series: what are some common substitutions for diabetic and vegan pastry recipes?
Okay, so this is something that's become really popular, actually, and I think that, I didn't study, vegan pastry making or anything like that, but it's all just been kind of trial and error, because I do have a lot of clients that are vegan or just have dairy allergies. And, we want to try to make everybody happy, especially when it's their wedding day. So I find with diabetics, sometimes I'll turn to things like, the Splenda, those types of things. So we've dabbled in that a bit. Vegan is a little bit hard in the sense of structure sometimes, because cakes do require a lot of structure, and dairy helps kind of navigate that. But I do use flax to substitute for egg. So, I mean, that's a common one. And then we'll turn to different types of milks, like nut milks or soy. Chickpea actually has been a new kind of discovery for me. So the liquid in a chickpea can, which is called aquafaba, can actually make meringue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if you use it as like a substitute for egg white, Google that, and it's pretty amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that advice. And once again, Nadia, I wanted to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us today to speak with our YCDSB community and share your experience and advice with us all. Thank you so much on behalf of the YCDSB, Nadia.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure chatting with you all, and I hope that I've given a little bit direction into my world of celebrating art and pastry.
You certainly have. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care. Bye, Nadia.
Bye.